Well, good evening. Thank y'all for being here. It's good to see everybody this evening. Thanks for joining us for the meeting. We'll go ahead and get it started. It's good to have a good group of people here. Looks like a lot of smiling faces. That's good to see you. Thanks for joining us. We've got a January 18th, 2022 Board of Trustees for the Marble Falls Independent School District meeting scheduled for 6 o'clock p.m. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. We have all members of the board present with the exception of Mr. Edwards, who is not able to join us this evening. And at this time, to get things started, we'll ask Mr. Verdell to open us with an invocation, followed by the pledges by Dr. Allen and the vision statement by Mr. Boshiers.
Pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful day and all the love and blessings that you've given each and every one of us here. I ask that you be with all of our students, staff, and anyone else in our community that are struggling with this crazy illness and any other health issues. Please give them the strength to make a speedy recovery. Give us the strength and grace as we go forth each day, knowing you are at our sides. Be with us tonight, provide us wisdom and integrity to help guide us in our school and community in the direction we see fit. Always give us the ability to always seek your will in everything we do. In his name we pray. Amen.
The pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
If you'll join me in our vision statement. Marble
Falls
Falls
ISD has an unyielding commitment to love every child and inspire them to achieve their fullest potential.
Okay, that gets us to the best part of the night. Special recognition, Superintendent's Award, Highland Lakes Elementary, Ms. Talamontes.
How exciting. I was staring right at the agenda. I didn't realize I was starting so quick. Y'all are awesome. We have two fabulous students to recognize. If you'll wave, I know you heard Highland Lakes in the house. If you'll wave if you're a teacher, administrator, staff from Highland Lakes. Yes. If you're a parent from Highland Lakes here to support a kiddo. Yes, thank y'all for being here. I'm so excited to share a couple of our students with you. I have just a few brief comments to share. I would love for Shayla. We have Shayla Mazariegos and Eduardo. If y'all would come up and stand with Miss T. It's a great photo op, Mom. We have Shayla Mazariegos and Eduardo Molina. Come over here. Let them see you. Come over here. Y'all look great. We asked our staff and we asked our students, your friends have shared fabulous things about you. Shayla, for example, reflects our no excuses college readiness spirit. By taking her education seriously, her teachers both find that when we do student-led conferences, that they were so impressed with your knowledge of your own strengths and your areas of growth, those things that you're already so good at and how to use those to continue to grow. They find that Shayla is focused, determined, those are strong words, works hard, gives her best every single day. She's a problem solver and a leader. She's not afraid to ask questions, which we talk about being important to growth. They can count on Shayla to help her peers in their studies, and she's always willing to share her knowledge with those around you. Shayla also embodies the motto, be kind, be you, belong, by cheering on her peers when they need it during class. She's so quick to give a compliment. She gives motivation to friends, and she lifts them up. Dile Ms. Bondak que Sheila anima a sus compañeros cuando lo necesitan durante la clase. Es rápida para ser cariñosa y dar motivación a sus compañeros. Qué bueno. Words that represent Shayla that were shared with us about her. She is kind. She is compassionate, responsible, friendly, clever, motivated. Shayla es divertido, una gran amiga, anima a las personas cuando están deprimidas y ella es cariñosa y agradable. Dice Jalen, your friend Jalen says that. Shayla's smart, she's funny, she's caring, she's humble, she's kind, and she's always finds a way to be happy every day, says Saul. And Shayla's so kind, she's smart, she's funny, siempre se preocupa por todos y siempre está feliz. We've heard that twice, that she's always happy. Shayla siempre ayuda cuando alguien necesita ayuda y es como una prima para mí y una amiga. Josue thinks she's like a cousin for him. So that all of your friends are very excited to see you recognized, as rightly they should be. And Eduardo, we have nice things about you too. Eduardo reflects our no excuses college readiness spirit by being responsible, always working toward being a better student. He's goal-oriented and has high expectations for himself. We see that in him every day. Eduardo exceeds expectations as a role model student. He instills a growth mindset and sets the bar high for all to follow. Those were teacher comments. Some of your friends think that Eduardo is hardworking. He's a smart student. He's always on task and he's always helping. And he's a good friend because he's kind, a great listener, and also very smart. He embodies the motto, be kind, be you belong, by being respectful to his peers and his teachers. Your teachers think that you listen to those around you, and you're a great team player. When it comes to things like collaborating with other students, a peacemaker was something that was commented by a teacher, and that you show great leadership qualities, Eduardo. Always dependable, reliable, follows directions, help mentor classmates, very valuable part of the classroom. And another friend thinks that you make teachers and students laugh and have a good time. And that's important at school too. Thank you for making learning fun. Some words that represent Eduardo are forward-thinking, level-headed, bright, brilliant, kind, responsible. Gonna be a teacher at my school one day. Does all that sound good? I love it. Those are outstanding. We have some gifts for you, okay? Your teachers want you to have a college hoodie. We represent college. Every classroom adopts a college. And so Shayla's college tee is from UT. Yeah. And Eduardo's is from West Virginia. We didn't hear that. We are so excited to celebrate you. I want your teachers to stand up because we're celebrating everything that they're pouring into you as well. Come on, stand up. Thank you for being model students. Our superintendent has something for you also, so don't go anywhere yet.
We'd love to get a picture with you guys. So here, let's take these, set them down right here for just a second. And y'all can go hold your certificate. There you go. Put that right there. There you go.
Yeah. You weren't gonna get away from the picture. All right, big smiles. There we go.
Okay, that gets us to item 6B, going the extra mile award. Ms. Henson. Okay, Dr. Gasaway.
That's all right. Well, thank y'all. Ooh, that was louder than I thought. Our person who we're going to recognize tonight from Highland Lakes could not be here, and so, but we still want to take the opportunity to recognize her, and then we will be working to get out to Highland Lakes with her GEM award and honor her there at the campus when they have a faculty meeting. But I will tell you, she is a gem for certain. She is their counselor, Desiree Guthrie, and I asked Miss Talamontes, if she would come up and just share a few words about Ms. Guthrie. Come on up.
Yes, it's my pleasure. Thank you for letting us recognize Ms. Guthrie. I had to prepare words because there's so many that could be said, and I wanted to honor your time and not say them all. And so I do have team comments from across the campus. We find that Ms. Guthrie goes above and beyond getting our community together to help our students with any assistance they may need. We're so blessed to have her continue to serve alongside us and love our students. So generous with her time and talent, says another group. She answers texts and calls after hours, including weekends. That's probably where she is right now. We have questions when we need advice. She's always there. She goes out of her way to assist in whatever needs arise. She does it with kindness and professionalism. Thank you for loving our students. We're privileged to have Ms. Guthrie, says another team. Again, she goes above and beyond to not only support our students, but also staff needs. Ms. Guthrie, we love that you always have a bright smile and a fantastic attitude and usually a great t-shirt. Your dedication to HLAS is helping to lead us to success. She starts each day with a positive thought and a grateful heart and usually brings me a coffee. She continually advocates for children, the needs of students. She cares for our campus and facilitates getting our kids the support they need. Thank you for loving your people. Another team says that her commitment is greatly appreciated. She strives to honor the needs of us all. She's truly a gem at our campus, always available. Thank you for going again. We hear the words above and beyond. And then I wrote just a few words. Our instructional leadership team specifically, I know that you've heard lots of love and lots of inspiration in the comments of others. But our team just wouldn't be complete nor nearly successful without the selfless and just seemingly ceaseless efforts of our counselor, Desiree. You heard a lot about the heart again, but the catalyst for that love and inspiration is evident, but it takes lots of just work. So beyond the love and beyond the inspiration and the motivation and the heart that you heard, it takes actual feet on the ground, hands in the work. To make all of that happen. She tackles non-traditional supports for our school specifically in so many ways, supplies, distribution for students that come without. She does that at the beginning of the year. She does it throughout the year. 80 blessings in a backpack each week. She coordinates that with outside donors. She distributes to very grateful students. And at holidays, that looks more like 160 blessings. 40 coats for kids who otherwise wouldn't have had one at the winter break. She coordinates with the district again to receive and distribute to grateful students. 7 backpacks to provide to McKinney-Vento students, not to mention the caseload of just identifying and onboarding those students. And 25 holiday gift sets. She goes on home visits, like last year's snow and ice, to deliver blankets and water and space heaters for people who couldn't get to our school and would have otherwise gone cold. She makes transportation arrangements for parents when they can't use their school voucher to go buy glasses. She spearheads t-shirt orders for special occasions to help us keep morale up. And just way too many positive behavior incentives to even count. She coordinates Model Mustang recognitions each month. She makes purchases for our Mustang store. She celebrates Model Mustang recognitions each month. She provides experiences. Kids will use their Model Mustangs or their Mustang stamps that they receive just to buy a moment with Ms. Guthrie. She'll make stained glass and ornaments and goodies with them. And yet somehow amidst all that non-traditional extra stuff, our counselor musters the clear-headedness, the professionalism to come and oversee the more traditional academic and guidance type supports, Section 504 oversight, IDEA special services referrals for evaluation, the timeline tasks that come with those, risk assessments for students in crisis and networking to provide services for students with adverse childhood experiences, multi-tiered systems of support for academic and behavioral interventions, and all the paperwork and meetings associated with each of those. Of the 6 exceptional systems that we work towards at HLE, she oversees some of the systems that are the most synced, for example, MTSS, most aligned to state district requirements and just the best communicated with staff and students and families. We absolutely couldn't do the work of a No Excuses campus if Ms. Guthrie didn't believe that all students can achieve bold successes and if she didn't feel like it was our school's responsibility to make that a reality. Thank you for loving our people. Thank you for letting us recognize Ms. Guthrie.
Very good. That gets us to 6C, Marble Falls High School Thespians. Mr. Clark.
Come on up, fellas. I can go on this side too. I think we have 10, 11 of the 17. 11? Awesome. Okay, so good evening. I'm here to speak to you about our proposed MFHS theater trip to Indianapolis for the International Thespian Festival. We've moved the festival from the great mecca of Lincoln, Nebraska to Indianapolis. So some of our kids' accomplishments last November, we had 24 kids attend the Texas Thespian Festival along with 7,000 other high school theater students. Most of the MFHS students competed in an event, either in national qualifying events or Texas-only team events. For the first time ever, and if I say your name, guys, just raise your hand, wave at the board. For the first time ever, our scenic design team won the Texas Thespian State Championship. That team, 3 of 4 of which are freshmen actually, consists of Zoe Stedman, Daly Ivy, Elin Goslink, and Ella Bray. Yeah. 17 of the 18 competitors were given superior scores and qualified for nationals at the University of Indiana. 17 of 18 is our school's best percentage. For the fourth time in the last 7 festivals, Marble Falls High School was selected to perform on main stage for closing ceremonies. To put that in perspective, I'm going off script a little bit. One time is like an accomplishment for a school. And for us to have done it 4 times in the last 7 festivals, either state or the International Thespian Festival, is insane. I don't know how they're doing it, but they continue to do it. So those kiddos this year were Aaron Fanley and Sachi Markham. Their duet acting scene received perfect scores, qualified for callbacks, and then were selected to perform on the main stage. This is the 5th consecutive year that a Marble Falls High School performance thespian has made it to the main stage callbacks at an in-person festival. I'm really proud of these guys. Our largest and youngest group acting scene ever qualified for nationals and were 3 points from perfect scores. 7 of the 9 group members are freshmen. Group members include Ella Bray, Haley Flores, Abby McClinton, Ainsley Briggs, Elin Goslink, Caden Gonzalez, Mallory Haupt, Evelyn Cortez, and Sophie Reyna. Additional qualifiers are Ayarta Bislimi, Caleb Pounds in duet acting, 1 point from perfect scores. Maddie Way in lighting design, 2 points from perfect scores. Janine Seal and Ruth Fanley in duet acting. Easton Jones in solo musical. All 17 of these qualifiers are allowed to compete and attend the national competition this June. During this week-long summer intensive, students attend workshops that focus on acting, directing, writing, design, leadership, and education. This trip would cost the district roughly $1,200 per student. This pays for all meals during the festival, room and board, airline tickets, and the 6-day festival registration fee. With your permission and your help, I'd like to give these qualifiers the opportunity to compete for a national championship in their respective categories, but more importantly, allow them to partake in this week-long educational conference at the University of Indiana. Thank you for your consideration. I'm smiling. I don't know.
Awesome, very good. Congratulations. We look forward to seeing how that goes. Let's jump down, just don't go anywhere yet. So we sort of did this in 2 approaches where we had a recognition in 6C, but then on item 10A, presentations and discussions at out-of-state travel request, that would be what you just presented for, right? You don't need to present again later.
No, sir.
Okay. And so remind us what exactly we might be wanting to make a motion on if we were to do that.
The trip and registration fees, the airline fees for each of the students.
$1,200 per student for the qualifying students,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So that is on the agenda as an action item if we wanted to take that tonight.
I'd make a motion to approve the high school thespians out-of-state travel request and associated cost.
Motion by Mr. Boshiers. Second by Mr. Payson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Y'all have fun. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right, it's down, let's see, let's jump back up to 6D, School Board Recognition Month. Dr. Allen.
I will make some closing remarks here in a moment, but before I do that, I know that some of our campuses would like to express their appreciation to our school board members for their service. January is Public School Board Recognition Month, as declared by Governor Greg Abbott, and we are going to start with the high school and move down to elementaries from there. If y'all haven't already done rock, paper, scissors for who goes in what order, do that, but we're going to start with Mr. Adams, and then go Hampton and Bernard, and then the elementaries can figure it out from there.
Well, I'm grateful to get to go first because I don't stand the risk of repeating anything anybody else says. So that's good. But I'll also try to be real respectful of my colleagues to make sure I don't say too much and keep my remarks brief. But every year I say the same thing, but every year you guys prove worthy of it. And it is that I really truthfully believe that Marble Falls IC has the best school board in all of Texas. I've had the privilege of working for others, and I can tell you that I've never worked with a group of people that is more student-centered than the group of folks that's here. And I just want to say how grateful I am to be able to serve under you and to know that as a campus leader, I have solid leadership to follow. And so I just want to say thank you for that. Our person is Mandy McCary, and so we have a gift for you, Mandy. It is, so, all right, little side note. I talked my wife into letting me buy a Glowforge, and so this is the first thing I ever used to make it with, and so this is for you.
He's a little taller than I am, sorry. My school board member is Coach Berkman. I have just something small prepared and then we'll get going. The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members. You are those compassionate leaders within our whole community here in Marble Falls. Thank you for all you do to support our schools. We love and inspire, and you inspire love within our community. So thank you so much for everything that y'all do for us. Sometimes it's thankless, but we always are so appreciative of your time and your efforts for our district. So thank you very much. We have a plaque for Mr. Berkman from Falls Career High School.
I know I'm just the third one up, but I feel like I'm already going to be repeating myself or not myself, but repeating the comments that have been said about going above and beyond. And the motto this year, I feel, is so fitting of rising above. As a school board and as a district, we've had to rise above a lot as the school year has progressed. And so thank you for being those leaders that we look to and lean on for guidance and for your, unwavering leadership of our district. We truly appreciate it. Mr. Edwards is my person. There's a super cool snow globe in here, so don't let him just rip it open, but I will leave it for him when he returns, so thank you very much.
I have a few extra words. Okay, so just like everyone else said, we absolutely appreciate you guys, and the motto for this year, Rising Above, you definitely inspire us to do that as you do that every day. At Colt, we have the opportunity to highlight Mr. Alex Payson and how he rises above every day and supports us, but not only us here at school and in our school district, but also in our community. And so that's exactly what Mr. Payson does. He puts forth an extra degree of effort, and at Colt, we rise up and we live 212 degrees. So it's really fitting for us to be able to use that motto and to highlight Mr. Payson at the same time. We know a little bit about Mr. Payson, and service on the school board, service in the community, and service in other areas of his life is what he is. He is a servant leader, and he absolutely does that every day. In our community, he collaborates with Mr. Nauman at the Highland Lakes Crisis Network, which serves community members in need. In honor of Mr. Payson, we are donating 212 items to the Highland Lakes Crisis Network. And this was inspired by our kindergartners who have been keeping track of a hundreds chart in the hallway, and they've been collecting 100 items, and they've been checking them off. So they've been doing some math with that. And so altogether, we'll donate 212 items in your honor after the 100th day of school, of course, because they're kindergartners. Furthermore, we also know how Mr. Payson embodies the 212-degree vision, and he does have 2 students that go to our campus, and his wife is our assistant principal, so he's well-versed on how we use 212 degrees. So we do have a copy of a book for you that's a little bit, it's got more colorful pictures in it, and so various members of our staff came and signed different pages in the book that they feel really speak highly to how you live 212 in those different areas of your life. And then lastly, we know that Mr. Payson has a food truck, the Numinous truck, that goes around and delivers food. And so what we have done is our staff has given small donations, and it's been a small enough donation that we are going to be able to purchase a little food truck food center for our pre-K students and our ECSE students to utilize. And what we would love to do is invite you, when we get this in, to come up with the actual food truck and let our pre-K students make a connection to that and see, and maybe Mr. Nauman could come too if he'd like, and all of you, of course, are welcome. But that way they could see how that goes. And so this little food truck comes with play pieces, and they'll be able to really see how that all works together. So again, thank you, Mr. Payson, for inspiring us to give not only to our students, but also to our community. You are an example to us all of what Living 212 and Rising Above looks like. Thank you.
All right, they let Erica go before me so she can say most of the things, and then I'll be really short after. Thank you, Erica. Thank you all for all of your service and leadership, and I've had just such a great time working for you and with you over the last 8 years. Our board member is Mr. Kevin Verdell, and like she said about Alex, Kevin has a wife at our campus and a daughter at our campus, so we're able to see him in so many other roles as a spouse, as a dad, as a parent at the school, and so he was able to serve and work with us in our fall event this year, and I don't remember, you were in like nachos and hot dog. He was in charge of food, so pickles. So he comes in there and just really helps help a bad situation get better quickly, and got rid of all the food for us. So we need to get you a food truck, but I don't have a food truck for you today. But we do appreciate you coming. He's always coming up to events, coming and just helping with arrival, and just however he can do to make a connection with our campus and our kids and our staff. And so we really appreciate you and your service to the district, but especially to us at Marble Falls Elementary. And we have some food for you. We talked to Jennifer. Hopefully this is a place you like and not just a place that she likes, but she said this local restaurant is your favorite. So it's a little something here from our staff to you, and thank you for all that you do for us.
Okay, let me pull it down. I need a box like I had to have in kindergarten, so I was tall as everybody. So anyways, I'm Mickey Bertino. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Spicewood, so I'm representing Spicewood, and our rep is Mr. Nauman. But thank you to all of you of all the time. A lot of people don't realize the hours and hours of volunteer work that you don't get paid for, and we just cannot say thank you enough, and we couldn't do our job without all of you. So Tiffany Brantley made a poem. She actually wrote it, excuse me. So I'm going to read it. You fly higher, clearly you see the path. You fly higher, gracefully leading, you fly higher. Soaring selflessly, protecting all, you fly higher. Rising above fear, your colors light up the sky. It is you, Mr. Nauman, that rises above. Thank you, Spicewood Elementary. So our hopes are, we have a few gifts. We have a donation that our school has gathered for Highland Lakes Crisis Network, and also a gift card for you and the family to go out to dinner. So go and treat yourself. But we do hope that more than just this gift, or more than just this 1 month that we represent, or recognize all of you, that our hard work and with your leadership, that you can see all that we do throughout the whole entire year, and that see that we are living the vision of Marble Falls. So thank you for all you do, and that's it.
I tried to hurry up here before Mickey said those great words. That's nicely done. Thank you to all of you. You all rise above. Always has been a pleasure to work with you in Marble Falls, and to teach some of you in Marble Falls. You know what? I took his phone away one day, and now he's the president of the board. I love that. It is such a pleasure to serve with you. You continue to rise above, and I knew that the what's this called? The graphic, yes. The words fail me. It's not a parachute. It's a thing that. Thank you. The hot air balloon. I didn't get you a hot air balloon, Chief. I knew that was in symbolizing what you do, but I couldn't help but think that it also symbolizes what you do for us, all the work, the fact that you rise above the many issues that come up along your daily lives, and then rise above those issues that come at the dais there, helps us to rise above the challenges that we encounter just serving our great community. And so we're appreciative to all of you. Chief Boshears is our board member out at Highland Lakes. We see him frequently. He has a parking space at our campus. It says police. And we see him frequently. So glad to have you. And Michelle, we do have a gift. It's rooted, but also rises above the ground. And we have a gift card so that your thankful dinner praise and your glasses may rise above a menu that Michelle didn't have to prepare.
I'm going to be brief because the more I talk, the more likely I am to start coughing. I know it's super disappointing. Here's what I'll say. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've never been in a time more divisive and difficult and challenging than this. And frankly, more thankless for this for people who are doing what y'all are doing. And Mickey said it, and it's worth repeating. It's volunteer work. No one up here gets paid. Most politicians go into office and get rich. These people don't. It's all because you love the kids and because you believe in the vision that we're trying to accomplish, and you believe that if we can strengthen our community, we can strengthen our schools, and we can help kids achieve the promise and the hope that they have if we can do right by them. And we can't, they've said it several times, it is not like that everywhere. So many people are looking to themselves instead of looking to others. And there's an ethic, and there's a morality, and there's an integrity that we have in this district because of your leadership, and I appreciate it, as well as the folks that you've heard from tonight. So thank you very much. Recognizing you guys once a month is probably not appropriate. We should probably do it more often. But having said that, thank y'all very much for your service.
Thank you, and thank you for the thoughtful displays of love here, and we appreciate what you all do more than words can describe, and it's an honor to serve. Okay, that gets us to citizen comments. We do have a couple of citizen comments. Just in general, the citizen comment policy is that we allow 3 minutes for each comment. You can say basically anything as long as it's not toward any direct person. And I'll just recall them in the order that they were laid up here, and then we will just go one at a time. Let's see. So the first one, Ms. Hanson. And I'll time you, and then when we get close, I'll just give you a little signal that we got about 15 seconds to wrap up.
I'll try to cut it down. So before you start my timer, I just want to thank the board as well, and also congratulate the students and staff at Highland Lakes Elementary. That's where I got my start as a public school teacher, so very proud of that campus. Anyway.
Ms. Hanson, will you turn that microphone? It's not picking up on the, there you go.
Okay, so I'll get started. Board and community members, I come to you as a parent and former educator for MFISD to express continued concerns in which we address issues of race and diversity within our schools. My son, now in 6th grade, is attending the middle school. Between Wednesday evening and Thursday morning, he had an emotional breakdown. This was the culmination of many incidents of being targeted solely on the color of his skin. This year, school cameras have captured my son being pushed, having items snatched from his hands and referred to as a brown Caillou, repeatedly attacked by a student assisting on an N-word pass, pushed and provoked by the same student on other occasions. This has been reported to school administration and teachers by myself and son. While my son was visiting a friend on Wednesday evening, a student a year older used the N-word in a derogatory manner in response to my son being asked to pick up trash from the yard. Also, the other student physically assaulted my son when he asked the student not to refer to him using that word. He informed the responding officer that the student in question informed the responding officer that he had received an N-word pass from someone at school. Other incidents include being called a black monkey while attending MFISD and ridiculed at HLES because of the dark pigment of his knees, which has caused my son, to feel uncomfortable and does not wear shorts to school. The problem is that students are being subjected to racial discrimination by the use of language that is culturally insensitive and bullied solely on the color of their skin. MFISD leadership has a duty to educate staff and students on diversity and inclusion to promote racial equality within our schools. This generation has a right to be educated from the moment they walk in school doors on positive race relations, embracing differences, and eradicating all forms of hate and biases. Being reactive or acting in silence with no position at all has been ineffective. Here's a list of short and long-term solutions that I believe the board should consider. Short-term, provide diversity posters throughout every campus. All ethnicities, including minorities, need to see each other learning together. Increase the volume of books in school libraries that feature minority characters. Students can learn to embrace minorities by reading of shared experiences. Hire and retain more African American educators and personnel. Minority students should have their ethnicity and culture represented by staff. Include mandatory diversity training as a part of professional development. Use an online tool to review standards annually. This ensures every educator has a base of understanding positive race relations. Update the district website to include diversity statements. Parents, community, and students need to know where the district stands on the issue of racial equality. It should be easily accessible and not just a blanket statement of district policies based on TEA guidelines. Invite a keynote speaker on multicultural education, with the goal being to educate staff on identifying their own biases, engaging students on the topic of inclusion, and embracing minorities. Implement a diversity program on all campuses. This sets a standard that MFISD embraces all ethnicities and cultures. It has taken the necessary steps to teach students racial equality. Okay, I'll just go down to this. Lastly, as we thrive to be an innovative and forward-thinking school district that is distinct for its ability to love every child, committed to the academic and social-emotional growth of pupils, we must advance our programs and practices to ensure racial equality for all students and staff.
Thank you for the comments, and we'll get to an action, I think, after we hear the other two comments. But this forum is not necessarily the best to be able to have dialogue back and forth. But I think I hope that maybe we can come away from tonight with some action steps where we can start having a dialogue about some of this. And so, comments from the board in terms of that.
Thank you for
But
being willing to come and speak to us about it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Everything and lets people come and talk.
Yes. Thank
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Hanson. Okay, Ms. St. Martin.
Hello, Board. Thank you for having me. I'm Peggy St. Martin, and these are my boys. They wanted to come to support Rolanda, our friend, and her son Vincent. We just moved here from out of state 3 months ago, and within that short period of time, we have already been targeted with racism, either by looks from people when we are shopping or direct things said to my children. 2 of my children are biracial. These are my boys. I wanted to introduce them, Luke, Austin, and Zeke, and I'm really proud of them for standing up today as they want to be a part of the change. We desperately need school settings where people of all backgrounds and views can engage and create change together. We need to address the issue of racism head on
as we work with and learn from all ethnic backgrounds. As we learn from experiences of others, we will see that racism is more than just another issue area. We hopefully will learn that systemic structures rooted in racism stand in the way of making progress on all types of public issues. The goal is to become a multi-ethnic, welcoming community committed to inclusion and racial equity in all aspects. Personal change and relationship building are critical to addressing racism. Sharing personal concerns and stories help make it possible to address these issues. As I mentioned, these are my 3 boys. I also have a younger daughter who couldn't have sat still for this meeting, but all 4 of my children are of different ethnicities and attend a school in this district. Just after 1 month of being in school here and being a part of the Texas community, Luke came home from school and was pretty upset at night at bedtime. He said that when he was standing in line for the bus to pick him up, another boy in school, who actually is a good friend and befriended Luke, was standing right next to Luke and said to another African-American girl in Luke's class, I won't say what the remark is, but it was not a nice thing to say, and it was clearly racist. And my son, Luke, looks just like this beautiful young girl. So how is he not to think that this is how others, view him as well? It upset Luke enough to share with me at bedtime. Our children need to know that they are safe and protected while on school campuses, and know that racism is absolutely not tolerated. This isn't part of what I wrote down, but it's so important because even though that one comment wasn't made at Luke, he was right there. 2 things: that the teacher did step up and tell this little boy that's unacceptable, and she even said, and you know that because we've told you this before. So this boy, and I appreciate the teacher for stepping up, but then that was kind of it. And what was interesting was that boy is a friend of Luke's, but he's not seeing the color enough to not be his friend, but he hears it and he sees it, that it's just perfectly acceptable to say because he hears other people doing it. And then the boy just, he continues to be Luke's friend, not even know what he's saying and not even knowing that his friend went home and was really upset about it. So that's kind of the point I'm trying to make here. And that for poor Rolandra's son, it breaks my heart. And this is a school, my son, this little guy is supposed to be going to next year. How can I bring him to this campus and not be worried that he's going to get beat up just because of the way he looks? So we all need to be a part of the change. We are here to make a part of the change. My sister came all the way from Cedar Park. She's a teacher. We want to be a part of the change. We're not just here, to give a little speech. So we will stand up and be there with you and do what it takes. Thank you. Thanks, boys.
Thank you, boys. Okay, Calvin Richard.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak here. My name is Calvin Richard. I've been a resident in Burnett County for 16 years. At that point, the look of Marble Falls changed drastically with about 200 African-American individuals. A lot of difficult, uncomfortable conversations is what brought more unity going on. And I think sometimes we shy away from those difficult conversations and learning that there is a difference. I don't want to not see color. When people say they're trying to be PC, I want you to see the Christ in me first and see a black man from New Orleans, because that says a story. It says a story who I am and what I'm about. In the same light, I've been a business owner here for 13 years and been providing services to this community. I realize that everyone's story is not the same. My kids, they haven't gone through the same thing. I've put one child through Marble Falls ISD already, 2 more at the high school. And yes, they are asked, can they have an in-pass, a word for the N-word pass? And that's basically is derogatory. It's saying, I want to say something bad about your mother. But the conversations are going on that this is happening. This is taught at home. Not all of this is taught at home, but the beauty of policy, of not having a strong, well, if we have a strong policy in place, the standards at home have to adhere to the policies here. Just like in law enforcement, there's policies to protect the officers as well as the citizens. If we're vague about it and we're not being strong and holding up there, the same kind of situations are happening. I'm here to support Rolandra and her son in this situation. I've been a part of unhealthy organizations. And what happens is the kids can't wait to leave. And if we want to have a culture that says, because of your skin color and because of your who you are and that's different from everyone else, you're going to want to leave Marble Falls. This is home for me, and I want to be part of the change and part of whatever's necessary to educate, to have a conversation that goes along with fixing some of the problems that we're having there instead of just sweeping under the rug. And I think that's what we've been doing. I don't know if it's because we have a limited population of African Americans that it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but each one of those individuals matter. I know what it's like to be a minority in many situations. I'm pretty comfortable in my skin, but not everybody's there. And so I can speak up for myself, but it has come from very difficult conversations along the way. So I would like to see, what are we doing to enhance the policy, put things in place where the policy in place in the institution here will change the dialogue and the conversations that happen in the households and in the community. Not everything is going to be taught in the house. Some things are learned from other students. As we heard, some things are done ignorantly. Just the kids do not understand that they are being racially discriminated. So part of this is the education. What does that look like? Once again, it's difficult conversations with parents, teachers, staff, and students that we actually can bring forth answering those difficult questions so that we can move forward and everyone feels like they're heard and we don't lose people who are going to be part of the community going forward. Thank you.
Comments from the board? I've been thinking about this for the last several days, and I saw a Facebook post, and my heart breaks for those situations. And often, just me as a human being, I feel a little bit helpless about how do you, like what do you do to fix it? How do you fix it? Because that word love up there is intentional, and we put it there for a purpose, and it's got a very direct tie to everything that we want to be about in Marble Falls. And that's clearly, there's some work to do on some of that. This dialogue, like this, or this format is not one that's conducive for dialogue. It's to give anybody out there an opportunity to come and just say stuff to us. But it prohibits us from engaging in anything that's very productive. But I think what could happen, that might be at least a first start, is that we schedule a meeting. I don't exactly know what we might call it, but a listening session. Because I didn't know, like some of the, even just an in-pass, I'd never heard that before until y'all just said it. So I need an education on what that means. At some point, Calvin, maybe we'll go to lunch and let me know what that means. But there is some that's just ignorance. There is some that's deliberate. There is some that is just people being dumb. And I think we have an opportunity to engage in a productive dialogue that is helpful in terms of steering our culture, because that's really what we're talking about. It's not necessarily just a school issue. School is a big piece, but it's a culture issue. And so we're talking about something very big, something very high level that hasn't been done well in many communities. And so I think maybe, long story to say, I think maybe if you all are willing to help, because that's what it's going to take, is I don't know where to start with a lot of it. And so being willing to come to a meeting where we can sit down and we can talk, we can listen, we can get to know one another better. I think we can start building trust, we can start building policies, we can start building things that might move us in a good direction. And so if that gives you what you need to do to maybe start down that road, I feel like that's at least where I land on this conversation.
Mr. Nauman, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're directing your administration to reach out to some of our parents this evening and get together and have a listening session at which we might invite some number of board members to further flesh out what the issues are and begin to problem solve some solutions.
Does that sound like a good first step, just nonverbals? We don't have to take a vote, but okay, sounds good. Yes.
Potentially involve some other community leaders?
And I think it's important to maybe involve other community leaders, and I think maybe different races too. Like, I don't know that it's just a black-white issue. Sure. Got it. Got it. Yep. I feel like maybe we can get some traction. Maybe we can get down the road to being better. And so if y'all are willing to walk it with us, I for one, at least am willing to try to engage in that. So Dr. Allen will put something together for that. And we appreciate you being willing and having the courage to come and talk to us tonight. So thank you. All right, item 8A, B, and C, general fund, it's just informational items, general fund summary, expenditure report, and quality investment, quarterly investment report. Anything, questions on that, comments? If y'all are interested in staying for the entire meeting, feel free. It's great stuff, but if you want to slip out, feel free to also take this opportunity to do that. Item 9 is a public hearing on District of Innovation Amendments. Ms. Lefflet. This is a public hearing, so we'll open a public hearing at 6:54 p.m.
Thank you. The District Innovation Committee has been meeting in conjunction with DEIC and working on proposed amendments to the current Marble Falls ISD District of Innovation Plan that would go into effect for the rest of the 21-22 school year and continue for the 22-23 school year. The current Marble Falls DOI plan will expire at the end of the 22-23 school year. A DOI plan may be amended at any time during the designated period of the plan. This public hearing is required in order to solicit feedback from the public in regards to the proposed amendments. The proposed amendments are posted to the Marble Falls ISD website. Proposed amendments to the plan include certification of staff, transfer students, removal of unwanted visitors, suspension of students below grade 3, class size waiver for DAP, expulsion from DAP for persistent misconduct. An overview of the DOI amendment process was presented at the December Board of Trustees meeting. Links for public comment were posted on December 14th. The DOI DEIC committee met on January 12, 2022 to review feedback that had been submitted. The DOI DEIC committee agreed to look at wording and add clarification to the following items. Removal of unwanted visitors. We will add wording clarifying the extreme behaviors that would warrant removal. Suspension of students below grade 3. We will add wording clarifying that intervention steps would have been implemented with students. Expulsion from DAP for persistent misconduct. We will add wording clarifying behaviors that would warrant the expulsion. Next steps in this process include the DOI DEIC will meet on February 16th, 2022 to review comments from this evening's board meeting and other comments that may have been submitted to me, as well as possibly approve final wording at that meeting. We have a board meeting February 22nd, 2022 for first reading, and a board meeting March 21st, 2022 for possible final approval on proposed amendments. If amendments are approved in March, then submission of required documents to TEA would follow. Thank you.
This is a public hearing. There we go. And so at this time, we'd open it for public comments. I know there is at least one public comment, right? Yes, there, yes. Ms. Putnam. We'll follow the same format, just structure-wise, as we did a while ago, about 3 minutes, and then
Okay.
I'll give you a little signal if you.
Just hoping. Let me know if, well, I've got a frog in my throat, and then with a mic. We're going to make this work, right? Okay. So good evening. My name is Jessamine Putnam, and I'm a parent of 3 children ages 6 to 13. I'm asking that you not request a waiver of TEC 37.005 that restricts the out-of-school suspensions of students below 3rd grade, except in the case of drugs, guns, or violent crime, Because out-of-school suspensions do more harm than good, they could be a potential violation of child fine, and schools need to exhaust all other remedies first. MFISD includes pre-K. Therefore, we are talking about children ages 4 through 8, and the prefrontal cortex, or rational part of the brain, is not fully developed until around the age of 25. In other words, how can we expect children whose brains will continue to develop for 1 to 2 more decades to have the same level of emotional regulation, maturity, and decision-making that adults do? In short, we cannot. The American Institutes for Research recently released a study that shows both in-school and out-of-school suspensions are ineffective methods for dealing with student misbehavior. The more severe the exclusionary discipline, the greater its negative effects were on a student's future academic performance, attendance, and behavior, and the beginning of the infamous school-to-prison pipeline. Yet we are a school with a vision statement to love and inspire. And here we have data which shows that out-of-school suspensions do the exact opposite. A suspension is quick and dirty. It does not deal with root cause, such as whether the student is having problems at home or has an undiagnosed learning or other disability. Research shows that when educators build positive experiences with students, suspension rates drop. In fact, TEC 37.005 was based on the use of positive behavioral interventions and strategies because that is what the data shows works, not out-of-school suspensions. What about disabilities? ADHD typically isn't diagnosed till age 7, and many learning disabilities aren't caught by the schools till 2nd or 3rd grade. Under child fine, districts are responsible for evaluating all children who reside in their district suspected of a disability, and repeated behavior infractions in children who face in and out of school suspension should be referred to a full and individual evaluation under child fine or risk noncompliance with federal law. Finally, we need to exhaust all remedies. The district has SEL counselors. It has a BCBA. We have a collaboration with the Phoenix Center. Have we exhausted all options before turning to the use of out-of-school suspensions for 4, 5, 6, and 7-year-olds? Yes, we are in a period of crisis with a rash of behaviors impacting a district with burned out teachers and staff. But our students are burned out too, and we need to ensure that we have exhausted all of our options for our 4, 5, 6, and 7-year-olds, as suspending students exacerbates situations and pushes problems down the road. Suspension does not magically make students better. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Other comments on the DOI amendments public hearing? Okay. This, as Ms. Lefflet says, not up for a vote tonight. When does that, it comes back next month? March. Very good.
Yes, sir.
So-
First read in February? Yeah.
Okay. So we have some time to take those comments into consideration and figure out if there are solutions or if that's something that is the committee still meeting on this also? So we've still got some time to develop some things. Very good. Okay, thank you. Hearing no more comments, we will close the public hearing at 7:01 p.m. That gets us to presentation, discussion items, and possible action. We checked off 10A already, so we will go to 10B, Marble Falls Inclusive Play Group presentation. Ms. Kraus. And crew.
I learned my lesson last week when I presented, and I couldn't breathe through half of it because I've got this big old baby in my belly. So I've made the choice to just introduce tonight and hand it off. So we are the Marble Falls Inclusive Playgroup. Several of our members were unable to make it tonight, but all here in spirit and support. We have a short presentation for you tonight. I am Ashley Kraus. This is Amanda MFISD, Susan Schultz, and Dedrick Thompson. And our members that were unable to make it are Lee Wessels, Amber McHose, Beverly Dean, and Taylor Smith. So I'm going to hand it off to Amanda.
All right,
Thank you guys so much. I am happy to see some familiar faces, but yes, for those of you I don't know, my name is Amanda MFISD, and we are the Inclusive Playgroup. Our mission is to bring a handicapped inclusive playground to Marble Falls. Currently, families that have children with special needs or handicaps, if they want to have a play park day with their family, they are driving to Round Rock or San Antonio. What makes an inclusive playground inclusive is that it has solid surfacing where you can actually wheel a wheelchair over to the equipment, and it also incorporates playground equipment where these children can actually play rather than sitting on the sidelines. They can interact with their siblings and their peers and their friends. If we could flip to our next slide. Oh, thank you. There you go. Okay. I'll figure out how to use this in a minute. The big green button, got it. Our goal is to raise an estimated $100,000 to build a playground here in Marble Falls. The big green button, there we go. Okay, we have a little video to play for you guys, and it has now occurred to me that you guys probably can't see it, but I guess you can listen. Oh, perfect.
Hi, my name is Ashley Krause, and my husband Michael and I have 3 children. Colton is 6, Brinley is 4, and Wyatt is just turned 3. We have been residents of Marble Falls as a family for about 9 years now, and my husband Michael grew up here, attended the schools here, used the parks here. We love Marble Falls. It's our community, it's our home base. In 2019, our youngest son, Wyatt, suffered a traumatic brain injury, and our lives will never be the same since that day. Before that day, I never thought that I would be standing here as an advocate for an inclusive park, because before that day, this type of thing didn't affect me. It didn't affect our family. And now it's our everyday. So having an inclusive park in Marble Falls, it would mean for our family going to the park together and being able to enjoy it together. Our biggest focus for Wyatt is always quality of life. We always are focused on ensuring that Wyatt is happy. A big part of his happiness is his siblings. Going to the park with them right now in Marble Falls means that Wyatt sits in his wheelchair while Colton and Brinley run and play. Quite frankly, that's not bringing Wyatt any happiness. Wyatt is just a small part of this bigger community of disabled children that aren't being able to enjoy our parks here in Marble Falls. As a family, as any family in this community, being able to go to the parks, an inclusive park, would mean everybody on the swing together, enjoying it, having fun, making memories as a family. It would mean going to the park and playing together and enjoying each other, enjoying what this community has to offer.
We want to bring this playground to Marble Falls. Okay, this is not working. Oh, there you go. I'm very slow with technology, apologies. So our plan, we have been working with a company called Leathers and Associates to come up with a design for an inspiration, at least, for what we could build here in Marble Falls. What you see here on the screen is by no means set in stone, but it is representative of what we could build with our anticipated budget that would serve the needs of our children in our community. Currently, we are fundraising under the Legacy Fund. We presented last week to the Marble Falls Education Foundation. We're hoping to visit with them further about possibly fundraising underneath their umbrella. That would kind of cut through a lot of red tape for us as far as grant writing, et cetera, et cetera. But right now, the $64,000 question is, where can we put this park? We have been visiting with the city for a while with the Parks and Rec Commission, and they've identified some options. And those may still be on the table, but they have been super supportive, super receptive, and we're grateful for all their time and energy. But working with the city, there is lots of red tape. So when Dr. Allen told us that the possibility of partnering with the school district on this project was a possibility, and possibly building this on school property, that got us very, very excited. So there is a piece of property on the Manzano Mile near Colt Elementary that would be an excellent location for this park. And so basically we look forward to hopefully a further conversation as to whether we can make this project and this partnership a reality.
So, I'm going to hop in here, is that okay? I know they're going to want to thank you for the presentation in a moment as well, but thank y'all for taking the time to come visit and share your vision for this. It's kind of been an interesting school board meeting in the sense that we're getting to talk about lots of opportunities to help do a better job with kids that we have opportunities to do a lot better with. And whether we're talking about making sure everybody's treated with dignity and respect in their day-to-day interactions based on race, color, and ethnicity, or whether or not we're talking about students who, regardless of their different levels of ability, have a place that they can play with their family members, it is an interesting way to think about how to make sure that when we talk about all kids, we're doing all of that, right? We have had some discussion about property adjacent to Colt for a number of different reasons. And at this point, and we've talked a little bit about it as well, under real property. And so at this point, I think what this group wants is a little bit of guidance as to what next steps might be. And that could be anything from the board saying that they want some time to think about it and then getting back with administration and directing us to do something, to actually giving administration some direction now about exploring feasibility, opening a dialogue with the city or other partners about what long-term maintenance might look like. Like, you could direct me to come up with some additional detail about what a full-fledged partnership might look like that would involve the district as potential partners on property, the city as potential partners on long-term maintenance, and then the Marble Falls Inclusive Play Group as the major funders for the work. So there's a lot that you can direct me to do at this point. So they've done this presentation with the hope that the board might give us some indication as to how you might want us to proceed, up to and including let us think about it and then come back with some more direction over some time. Like, the board doesn't have to do anything right now. I'm not putting your feet to the fire, but there's lots of things you could do here or ask me to do to help explore what next steps might be.
Okay, thoughts and comments, questions from the board?
I do have a question. Does your 800,000 include bathrooms?
It does not. It includes solid surfacing, it includes the equipment, the design, the construction, fencing. We have had talks that we are probably gonna have to up our budget to include bathrooms and parking.
It's on our radar, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the big problems with any of that land over there is putting pipes in for water because it's solid rock or whatever. So
I think that's something this group would have to work through, from chemical-style toilets to whether or not they're willing to take on the cost of blasting through the Dolomite.
I'd just say thank you for your presentation, and I think it's a great opportunity that we have in front of us to, really possibly do something in furtherance of our vision statement. And Dr. Allen, I, for one, would really greatly appreciate saying some more details on what a potential partnership would look like and what we could do to help out with that.
How much space does this require in terms of like acreage for?
We think about an acre and a half. We don't know exactly, depending on which piece of the land, how that would work with a parking lot. But that's kind of our guesstimate with the designer's input, about an acre and a half.
And how many acres are there between the high school and Cole?
Round about
11?
120. Between the high school and Cole, Michael, that's not being used? Yeah, about 120.
I feel like there's enough space for a playground.
Thanks.
Is there a reason why up by Colt is attractive to you all instead of some of the other options or just other places in town? Not like I'm not being, I love the idea. I'm on board. Did you pick that place for a reason?
The city had floated a few options, Parkview being the one that seemed to make the most sense, and there is just not enough room for any sort of parking over there. We see this as being something that can be utilized not just by our local school children, but for people that are in the surrounding areas that are closer to here than to Round Rock or San Antonio.
So busing,
Yeah.
buses parking, lighting on the streets, the sidewalks, all of those things are big pluses of Monsanto Mile. And we're also, my kids go to Colt, so selfishly, the ability to have the kids access the school, or access the parks from the school, we would love to see some kind of partnership with that as well.
I mean, other comments? Anybody? I think maybe let's just explore what that partnership looks like in more detail. I don't think it's a no. Like, I think we just need to figure out what that looks like, and then get some. And I would say whatever other ways. Like, I know there are silly, gifts of public funds, sort of things that we have to navigate. But if there are some other ways that we can creatively think through how we can support the effort, I think we're on
So
board
that
with
would be kind of where I would start, is I'd start reaching out to district council and saying, here's the idea that's been brought to us. Help us understand the different terms under which, are we talking about surface use agreement? Is it better just to do a land donation? Like, I'd start picking their brain on the best way to do this. And then this has been talked about offline more than in this meeting, but then the other thing I think I would do is start to really try and flesh out what the maintenance piece would look like. It's one thing to build a bathroom, it's another thing to make sure it always works. So making sure that we all are on the same page about what that looks like long-term, but let me start working with the different people who we need to work with. I heard Mr. Boshiers here, that I've heard you, so just to be clear, you're directing me, Mr. President, to start giving you some detail on this, yes?
I mean, non-verbals from the board. Yeah, sure. That sounds good. Are y'all meeting regularly, or is there something that we can do to be kind of stay in the loop of how things are going? Okay, will y'all maybe get us that information? Awesome. Okay, perfect.
Thank you
Cool.
very much for your time.
Thank y'all.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, let's skip. I'm going to rearrange here a little bit to get some things out of the way. Let's skip down to item 10F, minor boundary adjustment between Marble Falls ISD and Lago Vista ISD. Dr. Allen? I'm gonna get this started, and I'm probably going to need a heavy assist from Dr. Gassaway. This picked up a lot of steam last week when I was in protocol. But we have had 2 discussions about this in previous board meetings where we had talked about a minor boundary adjustment between Marble Falls ISD and Lago Vista, basically to help accommodate the developers of Terra Vista so that their students can have a 6-minute commute to school versus 30. I'd said at the time that we could do anything we wanted with this and gave you some information. It seemed as though at the time the board was amenable to this discussion and felt like it made sense, so long as the terms of an agreement that protected the interest of our taxpayers could be reached. We talked about that a little bit, and what the board directed me to do was come up with an arrangement whereby the ISD would receive $275,000 in 2022, and then $75,000 every year thereafter until we reach a $500,000 commitment. Lawyers for the district, our council, has been working with council representing Hines Development and the developers of Terra Vista to hammer out an agreement that meets those requirements, and in addition to that, has all the detail, for example, a TCAD tax plat map, which is in these documents here, and a agreement that is as airtight as you can reasonably get, okay? I phrase it that way because lawyers are funny, but our lawyer worked very, very hard at protecting the interest of the district. It is, in fact, part of the reason that this has taken a little bit of time, because there has been some back and forth
But I was pretty clear with our representation about this is something where at the end of the rainbow, there better be $500,000 for the district, or there's going to be lots of issues. And so she feels like we have an agreement that she's comfortable with. It's an agreement that Hines is comfortable with. And this would execute that. What we have in front of you is all the documents we would need to approve and execute to move the boundary, to make the minor boundary adjustment between Marble Falls ISD and Lago Vista ISD, and approve the donation agreement with terms that would result in the district receiving a total of $500,000, $275,000 in 2022, 75 thereafter, no less than 75 a year thereafter until we reach the $500,000 total. There is a little bit of process here that if you want to ask Dr. Gassaway about, you obviously can. Should the board choose, there's motion language at the dais because we need to do this in 2 motions. We would strongly recommend that we accept the donation and then we do the boundary line adjustment if that's what the board chooses to do. I will tell you that to me, and this is just me speaking here, that this is a little different than things that have happened in the past because this is not a detachment and annexation. It's not that much property. This is more about moving a line on a map to accommodate some development taking place between us and one of our neighbors. It is entirely up to the board as to how they view that. But I will tell you, we've talked about this 3 times, and I've received almost no comment from anybody about this in our community one way or the other. And so I'm not sensing that there's anyone who's frustrated about this. You maybe have heard things I haven't, but that's where we are. Jeff, if you'll come to the mic a little bit, and if you feel like we need to talk about this anymore.
I think you summarized it extremely well. Our board council was playing ping pong last week with the lawyers and just going back and forth, making sure there were a few questions that we worked on to get answered during the time that Dr. Allen was off site. And then ultimately, one of the things that was Dr. Allen's already mentioned is to do this in 2 reads, to accept the donation if the board so chose to do so, accept the donation first, and then approve the minor boundary adjustment in that order. And so,
I am, as an attorney, just assume things are going to go wrong. So I was paying attention when I read everything to the teeth, the enforcement, what if, and my question is, what happens if the developer files bankruptcy, which usually happens 2 or 3 times before a subdivision is finished?
So that's an interesting question. We had the same conversation with Christine, and my question was a little different. It was about what happens if Terra Vista changes hands, because that's what happens all the time. In terms of Hines declaring bankruptcy, I couldn't tell you what happens. I think that this would go into the same lump of debts that they would owe on everything else.
I know that the agreement is between the HOAs, and Hines is behind them as support, and that was one of the big sticking points that we had to work through. And so my hope would be that neither one of the HOAs were to.
But HOAs usually never have money.
This is why the agreement is written in such a way if the HOA falls short, Hines fills in the gap.
Okay.
That's how that was one of the big sticking points.
Okay.
They wanted to tie it to the HOA, and we said, no, we have to get the money.
Yeah, Kevin, did you see something I didn't see?
Well, you said HOAs don't have any money. They have it right now because Hines still controls the HOA, because depending on what that percentage is before they turn it over to an actual POA group, Hines is still in control of the POA group right now. But I think we're a little light on the default rate. I would push that to the usury max of 18%. But I think I asked Dr. Allen that early on, what is the recourse if they didn't pay? And it's basically an unsecured debt, so we'd fall in line with everybody else. So if they did not pay.
Okay. Questions, other questions, thoughts? We've talked about this a couple of times. Are we ready to take action on it, or? Oh, yes. Would you like to say something about any of that?
Thank you so much for your time tonight. I'm Darlene Luke with Hines, And to Ms. McCary's comment, Heinz has been around for 60 years. We're a global company. We do business in 25 countries and 200 major cities. So, and we went in depth with Dr. Allen and the board's attorney because, yes, the HOAs are funded by us, and then we back that up and have a letter addressed to Dr. Allen that says if the HOAs don't have the money, we fund it. So we are a very large organization, and our investments in Texas alone are huge. And like I said, we're global. Just to kind of give you an idea of the size of our company, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Darlene, I do have one. So, and this isn't meaning to be offensive, but if you know me, I tend to just get straight to the point on things. And so,
Sure.
60 years in business, doing business in 25 countries, couldn't you just pay the $500,000 now and we'd be good?
We certainly could. That wasn't the deal that we worked out. That was not our preference. We're to get the subdivision in Marble Falls off the ground. We're spending about $30 million to get to the first home. So, I mean, it's just a cash flow thing. I mean, you guys you borrow money, you build schools. We do too. I mean, we borrow money, we finance things. It's just a cash flow thing, and that was the board's response to us when we offered. I think the first round was $250 and $250 in payments, and the board accepted $275 upfront and $225 over time. So we just accepted what you countered with.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
That just seems like that would eliminate the need for talking about what happens if this and what happens if that. And
Sure. Yeah, we just accepted the board's counter, and we very much appreciate your time.
And I think it was actually initially 200 and something up front, and then a year skipped, and then like an additional 50,000. Am I wrong on that? No, you're not. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
To me, it seems like it's a pretty significant gain for something that we're not going to be utilizing anytime soon. And for me, it seems like if we can help out our students who already are in the district, that's like a pretty great thing. There is obviously some risk, but there's risk in everything we're doing these days.
True that. Okay, would we like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion. Why not? Might as well have some fun tonight. I move to approve a donation agreement between Marble Falls ISD and the Canyon West and Tessera Homeowners Associations as consideration for the boundary adjustment as presented.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Payson. Okay. Motion by Mr. Payson, second by Ms. McCrary. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Is there another motion on that item?
It's ideal to do them both tonight, correct? Yep, okay. I make another motion to approve a minor boundary adjustment agreement that will make a minor adjustment of the boundary between Marble Falls ISD and Lago Vista ISD as presented.
Motion by Mr. Payson. Second by Mr. McCrary. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Luke, for all that you've done to get that going also. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you so much to the whole board. We appreciate it.
Okay, I lost my place here. We're at item 10G, 10C. Item 10C is American Reading Company purchase. Ms. Leflin.
While Ms. Leflett's coming up, and speaking of leaving, our principals are working through a relatively challenging week. As you are aware, mornings are starting a little bit earlier than normal. If no one objects, can we please dismiss them?
Have a great night.
Good evening. So American Reading Company is a vendor that we have used for several years, primarily for English language learner support materials. We order ancillary books for them. We have classroom sets of books. We also use them for professional development. They've come out in person and coached our teachers. And then in addition, we also use a online program that they have called School Pace. With the additional funds that we now have with ESSER, we normally pay for most things from ARC, is who we refer to, through Title III and through some other local funds. But with the additional funds we have from ESSER, we're able to purchase some more. That, and combined with that, they've kind of taken on some more companies, so they're a little bigger. We are needing to seek permission to spend over $25,000 to them. We do have several invoices right now to process for them, but we're also gathering some more on what we need to order from them. And so for this agenda item, we were asking for approval to spend an amount not to exceed $49,000 at this time for the budget year from them. And then this probably will be something that will have to come back yearly on this vendor. We have several vendors that have purchased out other vendors that will now, that we have used their products for years, but because they'll all fall under one umbrella, we'll need to come back and ask permission now, whereas before it would have been under $25,000. Mr. Puga is here if we have specific questions over the exact products, if you have a question over that I would not be able to answer. It is our recommendation for you to approve that we can purchase the materials and services from the American Reading Company out of Title I, Title II, Title III, and ESSER, and also some out of the general fund in an amount not to exceed $49,000.
Your Honor, this is first read.
This is first
Well,
read.
It can be first read. There's some advantage if we went ahead and approved it tonight.
There is advantage to approve it tonight. We can go ahead and move forward on several of the items that we have down, and therefore they can go into classrooms quicker. The items that we order can be in classrooms faster. So, however, if you need to wait for second read in February, we understand that.
Okay, questions, comments from the board, motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of materials and services from the American Reading Company out of Title I, Title II, Title III, ESSER, and the general fund in an amount not to exceed $49,000, not to include prior purchases.
Motion by Mr. Boshiers.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Verdell. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Gets us to item 10D, instructional calendar 2022-2023.
Good evening. So this evening I am going to present to you the draft instructional calendar for the 22-23 school year that the DEIC approved at their last meeting. Our last meeting was a joint meeting between DEIC and DOI, so everybody from both committees had feedback. Crystal's getting the presentation up. In December, Dr. Melissa Fields presented information to you regarding the instructional calendar. Your presentation that you have tonight includes much of that same information. I'm not going to go back through and read all of the information, but I'll hit the highlights. Oh, they only have hard, okay. I thought that was one I shared by Google. I'm good though, I can talk through it. So if you see in the presentation, the development process started back in October and November, and we had agreement on the start of school, the beginning of the year PD days, Thanksgiving break. However, we needed to have more discussion around the Christmas break after we went through our process. We came and we did a staff survey, and the staff survey resulted in a 50-50 split between two options of the calendar on Christmas break. And when we last left you in December, we had sent out a parent survey, and we're closing the parent survey for feedback. The parent survey resulted in a 70-30 split. So 70% of the parents who submitted asked to keep our Christmas break how we have always had it, with the traditional 2 full weeks, which was draft 1. When we met with DEIC and DOI last week, DEIC and DOI agreed to go with the majority of what the parents in the community submitted in regards to that. There was 70%, which is a significant amount. If you'll see before you, you have a draft calendar, and on that draft calendar then, this is the one that they approved at their meeting last night that they recommended for me to bring forward to you. So it has Christmas break from December 19th to January 2nd, staff returns January 3rd, students return January 4th. The other additional part there would be the addition of the bad weather days, with the first bad weather day being May 26th and the second bad weather day being April 7th. It was discussed that February would be too early to designate a bad weather day because we normally have bad weather in February. And if we were to designate that, we might not be able to take advantage of it. Are there any questions?
What were some of the parents' comments for the 70-30?
On the 70-30, so on the survey, we didn't have a comment section, but people did email me. And so a lot of people preferred the 70-30 just because they felt that it was a more even split with Christmas. There were some copies in regards to divorced families and how custody orders are written, which I'm used to from where I came from. That was something that was submitted, that normally the split is Christmas. And so if you watch how your break is, the other break seemed a little uneven for the parents. There were some comments in regards to please don't split the weeks because it is more difficult for childcare. And so if we were to make any further adjustments, there were just some comments on not to have half weeks. Concern about attendance, if we had half weeks, if people would then take 3 full weeks for vacation instead of, part of a half week, a full week, and a part week. The other was there were numerous parents that responded that they do have to return to work and that they would return to work the 3rd or 4th. But then we did have a lot of people in the 30% that really liked the calendar on the 30%, liked having more time afterwards. And so it did open up for discussion that we've not had in the past. Our staff was very receptive to adjusting from traditionally how we've always done it. And even the parent comments, they were very kind-hearted and just wanted us to take into consideration, but stated they would work something out if we ended up needing to go with the later dates. So,
For the record, I don't like this calendar for a couple of reasons. And you do have a split week. It's just in January.
yes.
But one thing I don't like is that you only have 2 weeks in December to get all the school Christmas party, choir programs, church program, get all that stuff done. I just feel like you're compressing December. And I realize you got a couple more days after Thanksgiving, so technically there's another week there. And the other thing I don't like as a parent is I need another week to get my act together before my kids are out of school for Christmas. So if I could get out on the 22nd, I would much prefer that because then I've actually finished shopping and wrapping and all that stuff. Anyway, that's kind of my opinion. I understand about the custody orders and all of that, but I know there's been a year where we didn't go back to school till like January 7th or 8th. So,
there has been several, and,
yeah.
and throughout my whole career, there's been times when we haven't gotten out until the 23rd in various places. I will tell you that the student committee asked that we look at having the later break again next year for the 23-24 school year. Several student feedback pieces that were made were that there's only 3 weeks from Thanksgiving to the end of December, really 2 weeks not counting finals, to be able to raise your grade. And so part of what was beneficial through this process is that people were much more open to discussing changing than had been in the past. So for future calendars.
And I do know there's a lot more teaching days in the spring than in the fall. So if you're going to
Yes,
steal a
ma'am.
week from anywhere, it should be from the spring.
Yes, ma'am. That was brought up and discussed.
I will tell you that it was about 3 years ago, Jeff, that we got out, you're right, it's about 3 years ago, and we didn't go back to the 7th or 8th. The dates, it was a similar situation to this, but that late get out wasn't the 23rd. The late get out was like the 20th. It was a little bit, the late get out was a little bit earlier, and for that reason, I think people were more amenable to that. When I say people, I mean the community. I think the 23rd, the staff was 50-50, the kids were split. We heard kids telling us they wanted the early get out.
It was actually the 22nd.
The kids were split. Some of them wanted the late, some of them wanted the early. Some of the ones who preferred the early get out was because of travel out of country and getting to Mexico to see family and stuff. So it was really, really split. But then the parents were 70-30, and basically our recommendations based on when all things else are even, let the community sort of point you in the direction to go. But to Yarda's point, it is the first time that we have tried to push people's thinking on the notion of a later get out because of what it does in a lot of other ways. And it was although not the prevalent opinion, it did get people thinking about it in ways they haven't before. So I don't know. We'll see what happens in the future, but this would be our recommendation.
I did do some research. For as many districts as you can find that have this 2 weeks, there are as many districts that have the later 2 weeks. So I tried to see if there was a split between one of the meetings, but I kept pulling up 50-50.
Do we know what Burnett and Llano are doing? Not that that's a huge deal, but I'm just curious. Okay.
I just appreciate being out before Memorial Day. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so this is this a first read? I
This
feel
is
like we've
first
talked
read.
about
It
this.
can be first read with more discussion and approval in February, or it's your choice.
Okay. Do you all have a motion now, or do we want to wait?
If we approve it now, people have more time to start planning.
They have an extra month, you're right.
I'd make a motion, if it is time for that, to approve the recommended instructional calendar for the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
Motion by Mr. Payson. Second by, what's your name again? Dr. Berkman down there. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for your work on that, Yarda.
Yes,
sir.
balancing all the 50-50s. Item 10E, ESSER use of funds, update. Ms. Lefflet.
Yes, sir. So this evening, I am going to present you an update in regards to our ESSER funds that we have received. There are many requirements through ESSER, and one of those requirements is that we provide a certain number of updates to the school board, and then I will share at the end of the presentation several of the other requirements that you will see start to happen throughout the month. As you know from the last meeting when you asked, ESSER is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. And so, long acronym. I have another acronym for you later. Tonight, I'll talk briefly about grant amounts, timelines, allowed activities, and requirements without trying to overwhelm you. If you want more information, feel free to reach out to me, and Ms. Lafferty or I can provide you a lot more. Our ESSER grants, we have 3 ESSER grants. They were released in the order shown. However, that's not necessarily the order that they expire in. So ESSER 1 for 2020-2021, ESSER 3 runs until the 23-24 school year, and ESSER 2 until the 22-23 school year. Our ESSER 1 we received, it was $728,240. The entire amount that was for MFISD we dedicated towards staff because we were shorted pretty much exactly that amount from our money from the state. And then yes, we were shorted exactly that amount from our money that we were given from the state. So this.
Property taxes didn't decline, but the use of those property taxes to fund public schools.
Correct. And since we're a Title I district, we lost more than some other districts did. And so our entire ESSER 1, it's a supplement. It is not, it's a supplant, not a supplement. It was not extra.
Kind of makes you wonder where all those property tax dollars went.
Yes. And then in ESSER 1, we were required to do equitable services with our private nonprofit schools. So our 3 private nonprofit schools for ESSER 1 were First Baptist Christian School, Faith Academy, and St. Peter's Lutheran School. And we work with them through Title II and Title IV already. And so we handled through ESSER 1. ESSER 2 and 3 did not require us to do equitable services with the private schools. The private schools had to apply on their own. So for our allowable activities, when we wrote the grant, and I don't have this spelled out for everyone, just ESSER 1, but just for clarification, for our allowable activities for ESSER 1, we only checked 2 boxes. There were pages and pages of boxes you could check. We really needed just 2 boxes, with the second one being what our entire $700,000 went to, which would be other activities that are necessary to continue to employ existing staff of the local education agency due to our budget cut. The private schools, we checked numerous boxes for them. And so, you know, being able to provide their leaders things, being able to implement systems. In the end, and I'm still working out the final purchases with First Baptist Christian School, which we're able to. We still have time in the grant to finish their purchases. In the end, all the private schools were purchasing supplies to sanitize and clean the facilities of a local education agency. So we did have many more things we checked for them, but in the end, their highest need was that. So for ESSER 1, we're almost about to close out ESSER 1. I just have to finish out the expenses with First Baptist, the orders for First Baptist Christian School. For ESSER 2, this is our overall breakdown of how we put money in the pockets for ESSER 2 for our budget. For ESSER 2, there were pages of allowable activities. We checked numerous things, everything from any activity that's allowable under IDEA, under ESEA, which would be all of our title programs, anything that would allow for summer programming and enrichment, after school programming and enrichment, mitigation of the spread, hiring of nurses, mental health support. We checked a variety of things because when ESSER 2 came out, we didn't know what was going to happen yet with the pandemic. So we have quite a bit of options in regards to how we can use our ESSER 2 funds. As you heard Ms. Lafferty last week, our ESSER 2 funds are not fully allocated yet. We have them in these buckets, but there's only a certain amount that's actually already spent. And so as we go through the budgeting process, we'll work to see how we can best come out of everything. It's possible that as we come into next school year, that our local budget is cut more, and then ESSER 2 would have to assist in some ways to help us. ESSER 3 is the big one. So to see the budget on ESSER 3, it's broken out like this because first they gave us 2/3 of the allotment, which was for 21-22 school year and 22-23. They've now released the 23-24 amounts for us. And if you'll see, it shows our total grant, and then down below 20% learning loss. So we're required to allocate 20% of the grant towards learning loss, which doesn't necessarily mean stuff. It can be hiring an intervention teacher or paying for a computer program that's helping to accelerate students for learning loss. At the high school, we're using Apex Learning, so that counts for some of the learning loss funds on here. So in the end, I have to account for how much and make sure that we hit the 20% learning loss on ESSER 3. So ESSER 3, again, there was a menu of options. We had a lot of different things that we were looking at to be able to use for ESSER 3. Knowing that the state did not give us back our money that we lost under ESSER 1, we had to carry the $700,000 worth of people to be paid for out of ESSER 3. Ms. Lafferty talked to you about this at the last budget meeting, and she'll jump in if I get something wrong. So for ESSER 3, we have checklists of allowable activities in the grant. Also for all of the ESSER programs, I had to check how we did our needs assessment. So every time I met with a committee and got feedback, I checked off what we did. The state could come in and ask for my documentation of those things at any time. So the goals of our ESSER 3 funds are, one, we narrowed it down to some big goals, so I didn't have to show you a list of 30 items. Provide student academic support through targeted interventions, targeted tutoring, more time for learning opportunities in the summer and after school, student social and emotional support, providing rigorous instructional materials to help teachers, schools, and parents re-engage students, support teachers with training, resources, and coaching to accelerate student learning, empowering parents through additional counseling services, parent leadership training, and wraparound and community partnerships, other supports to include COVID-19 safety measures, and support activities that are necessary to maintain the operation of and continuity of services and continuing to employ existing staff of the district. The majority of our funding for ESSER 3 is $6,100 salaries again. Some of that is carryover from ESSER 1. Some of that is to help fund positions that we currently already had, and a portion of that also is to fund new positions. So there are new positions. For instance, I think a good example of a new position that was funded out of ESSER 3 that meets several of these would be our social worker. We funded our social worker out of ESSER 3. Social worker highly needed in this time, and so that would be one of the positions that we have funded from here. So we have certain requirements that we have, and particularly they're looking at ESSER 3. And one thing to know is that when the state is looking at ESSER 3, they are looking at both the side that I have and the side that Ms. Lafferty has. So when they come in to do what they call as a validation to check if we're doing things right, there's a considerable amount of documentation that Ms. Lafferty's office will have to provide, and an amount of documentation that I will have to provide for them. And the reasoning is that it's a U.S. Department of Education grant that then has required the state to provide things, so then the state requires us to provide things. So one of those things is a look at RIPICs. So I'm going to go forward. So RIPICs would be Return to In-Person Instruction and Continuity of Service Plan. So if you hear RIPICs, that's your new acronym there. So we're required to update our RIPICs every 6 months. So you know our safety plan that we have online right now that talked about return to school and our safety measures? We're required to go through and start to look at that now. We're at the 6-month mark. We need to look at it, review it, and then post any changes that we may have to that. And so we are supposed to refer to the latest CDC guidance, provide public comment and an opportunity to, public notice, opportunity to comment, and then we gather stakeholder input. So what you'll see is the ESSER 3 webpage will begin to have some additional documents on, as well as a Google form for the public to be able to submit comment. I already talked to DEIC and DOI last week, and they'll have a separate comment form they have. I've met with principals already, that leadership, they have some comments for them to submit. We'll meet with a student group, several other groups, and then we also will have it open for comment. Another requirement is that we're required to post our use of funds plan, and then we are required to let people know what we're using our money for and have them give us feedback. And so we're in the process of working on that also, so you may see some things that we have that we are sending out. Our final plan, you know, we have to follow our LEA policies and procedures, and then Mr. Puga will assist us in getting some assistance to translate all of our plans. We have to have all of our plans translated into Spanish, since that's our second dominant language in our school district. The last one that's a big requirement that they pushed and said was really big, and Ms. Lafferty was working hours and hours and hours on it, and then at the last minute in December, they said, oh wait, we need further clarification from the U.S. Department of Education. It's really not due right now, but you really need to check yourself for compliance, would be the maintenance of equity submission. And so Ms. Lafferty has worked on the maintenance of equity submission. They now have said they may change some of it. We're in a holding pattern, but she has an idea of where we were good or where we needed to make adjustments, and that's something we'll look at. And we have heard it will be a short turnaround, that they'll all of a sudden send out saying it's due this date, and then we'll need to have it done pretty quickly. So she is on top of that. She does not like maintenance of equity. It's a bear of a tool. It's not easy. Additional requirements, we'll have annual federal report requirement. So this will have some component to it where you get to hear me again come in front of you and do an actual report on some other aspects of ESSER. If you'll look at the very bottom, we know some of the report period dates, but we don't know the due dates. We know that they're going to give us a short turnaround time. We're going to have to show our expenditures by categories. I'm actually going to have to provide specific head counts for all of our activities that we've done under ESSER, how many students were impacted by each, and then have a measure for how they grew Some of that is new information. And then in the spring, at some point, they will choose certain districts for random validations. It's where they notify us, and then we have to turn in certain documentation by a certain time. And they'll look at these parts down here. Now, I really love working with grants, and I like the planning part of grants. But if you'll notice, everything that's listed there is, I'm involved in that, but the finance office is heavy on there. That's why it's really important that we're holding everybody accountable for following the very specific rules that Ms. Lafferty has out, because it all goes back to what she has written down and what we have to have. So the allowability of cost, did we follow the appropriate procurement? Our financial management system, does she have internal controls in the financial management system? So if we are picked or they ask for documentation, she then has to show how she has internal controls built in to the financial management system. Our time and effort for the employees we pay for out of the grants, and then all required policies and procedures. She's worked on a great manual and has a lot of detail in regards to federal grants. Next steps, so what are you going to see? So it's really important because we have to go back and relook at the safety plan. That's part of the requirement for us to look at. It's called RIPICS, remember, for grant purposes. We have to go back and get some more input on use of funds. Use of funds through some parent surveys. If you'll remember when we did Highland Lakes, the one thing that the Highland Lakes parents stated is they really needed books in the home. And so we were able to use some of the funds to provide Highland Lakes books in the homes. And so those would be some other things. We'll ask some additional questions, see if there's ways that we might need to tweak how we had planned using our funds, and then tweak using the funds. Some of the things I showed you, we've not even started yet. We're in the first year of the grant. Some things are not even planned for year 2. Some things we really wanted to get done this year. There's some really great things we wanted to get done at Highland Lakes. We wanted to be able to provide some extended PLC time. There's no subs. And so there are barriers that we've hit that we're not able to implement parts of the plan that we'll relook at and see how we can adjust to implement. And then you'll see a more robust presence on the website. You'll see some public notices get released just in the next month from now until the end of February. That is the update that I have for you over ESSER. And if you have any questions, I can try to answer some of those. Ms. Lafferty could probably answer some of them if they're in more depth around the finance aspect. There's no vote on this. It's just an update for you.
I asked Yarda, I said, Yarda, why are you showing all this to the board? Like, what's the point? What's their takeaway? And there's 2 pieces to it. One, this is stuff about which you should be informed because of just the large amount of money that's taking place. But 2, we are required to provide these updates from time to time to be in compliance. One of the things that I hope you took away, in addition to, well, there's a lot of things you could take away, but one of the things I hope you take away is the tremendous amount of opportunity that people will have to provide feedback on what we're doing moving forward. Nationally and statewide, there's been a lot of discussion about whether or not people are being listened to. Let me just tell you, we solicit feedback all the time. People aren't always listening to us when we ask for it, but it's there. And so this is just one more example of the many, many, many ways that the district tries to connect and give people opportunities. I will say that the use of all these federal funds is so daggum confusing that you have to spend hours with it. So it's almost unfair to ask people to give feedback on stuff that's this complicated. But we have received information that we've been able to respond to. So we love to get as much of that feedback as we can from our community, and we actually act on it to the best of our ability. And so I hope that people will take advantage of the opportunities to share with us their thoughts about how we're trying to use these federal funds as we move forward.
I did have one quick question. Is validation just a different word for audit?
It is. So there's audit and validation. So audit would be, and there still are audits. Audit would be a more of like, and correct me, yeah, like it is an audit. But validation means that they tell you that you've been chosen and you have 2 weeks or 3 weeks to turn in your stuff. And so they hope that in that 2 to 3 weeks of time that you learn that perhaps you were not doing everything as you needed to, but by the time you turn in everything, it's how it was supposed to be. That would be validation. So on the federal grants, they use the term validation for many of them. But then on some other aspects, the U.S. Department of Education has used the word audit. The finance department gets handed things, it's audit, which is turn it in now. It's not meant to be a learning experience where then you turn it in correctly. Validation is a lot nicer, yes.
Audit's almost gotcha.
Audit is a gotcha, yes. And, you know, several of us in here have been around long enough to where, you know, there was a time in which the Texas Education Agency would just show up and you were told to open it right then or provide it right then. And that's not necessarily how it is now, but the validation process is meant to help you learn. Great question.
Okay. How often do we have to have updates?
6 months.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll see you in 6 months.
We'll see you in 6 months. We'll see you in the summer.
Thanks.
So that's exactly 6 months. Every 6 months for 3 years. Are you thrilled?
Only 3. Okay.
All the way through.
Only
Every
3.
6 months for 3 years.
Yeah.
The other ones will be shorter because this is the first one. So
Thank you. And thank you for
welcome.
all the work that goes into this. What I came away from that was I'm thankful for our finance team to
Very
be able
thankful.
to handle all this.
Yes. If you didn't get that, that's exactly what it says there.
Yeah.
Yes.
You to follow all the rules. We'll let you know the rules when we make them up.
But we can guarantee that you're not doing it right.
And we'll validate you along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Good times. 10G is modify or suspend portions of board policy DEC local and delegate related authority to the superintendent, Dr. Gasaway.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Recently, the CDC made some changes as far as adult return to work, and the TEA dishes followed suit that we are having people return to work quicker after they get a case of COVID. It has put a significant challenge in front of some of our employees that as quick as they're getting it, they're also trying to get with doctors to get a return to work note. Hopefully, they're doing that. And we have experienced a number of stories recently that just highlight the need for this discussion tonight. I'm going to ask you to potentially take action and if you are willing and interested. The purpose of this would be to allow the district to work with employees who would have faced a significant challenge related to obtaining a return to work for their physician. The return to work is actually covered in board policy DEC local being that it is a local decision. It is not a legal policy, legal being that this is covering the state. And so we have the ability to make a change to this policy from time to time. This would be very temporary. An administrative regulation, I put that it would give clarity to the expectation when to return to work and the process for extenuating circumstances if there were an alternate path needed. I attached for you a copy of said administrative regulation so you could see what that regulation would look like, and it spells out the need for it, the policy. It starts with the policy in question and the specific wording of that policy, and the guidelines would be simply this. One is that we want employees to work with their physician with a return to work note. We don't want to circumvent that. Our preference would be to only utilize this in extenuating circumstances. Due to the strain on the medical system, we may have people that have trouble being able to get into. And so Dr. Allen, myself, or our Director of Human Resources, Danielle Henson, would work through a process, and that's below, that with employees who've made significant effort but been unable to obtain a return to work. This process, one of the things of the administrative regulation is it's specifically for COVID-19. It is not for someone who goes out on surgery and needs to be out for 5 days and they need to get a note from the doctor. This is really specifically for the pandemic, for what we're facing right now. And so if the employee were not able to get a physician note, they would contact one of us, Director of HR, myself, Dr. Allen. We would ask that employee specific questions. For example, I'm going to give you a very non-specific, non-real example. If we had an employee that said, I tried to get into Teladoc today and they couldn't get me in for 2 weeks. I would probably say, let me help you. I'm going to work with you right now on Contact and Teladoc, because every story we've heard is Teladoc that most people can get it that day. In fact, they can get it sometimes within a matter of minutes if there's openings, and typically we've had a lot of success. And so we would help that person try to be able to get into a physician. One of the things that I'm just personal story, I worked through the Baylor Scott and White just app and was able to email my doctor and get a return to work note, and never actually had to darken the doors, never actually had to talk to my doctor, but spelled out specifically all the different things that I was experiencing, how I was doing better. And so I was able to take care of that. So if we were to have an employee that had extenuating circumstances, we would take the emotion out of like trying to help them make sure they've jumped through some hoops to try to do this in the manner that we want them to. If we determined that they had an extenuating circumstance, we would have them contact our lead our MFISD lead nurse, who is Emily Kelly at the middle school. I've already spoken to Nurse Kelly, and one of the things she was concerned about, am I having to make a decision related to, did they jump through the hoops? And I said, no, we're taking that. We won't even send you a name until we've made that determination. And so what that Nurse Kelly would be asking is questions related to symptom onset, date of positive test, condition of symptoms, are they getting better? And so it would just give us the ability to get them back to work. Let me remind everyone, kids don't have to get a return to work or return to school note after they are out. And the only group that did were our athletes, and that has just changed recently as well. And so in absence of a return to work, Nurse Kelly would have the ability to make the determination that an employee could return to work based on extenuating circumstances. I spelled out in the administrative regulation, so we were all crystal clear that this would sunset May 27th, 2022, and that way if we felt the need to take action for further consideration of this, not only is it in the motion language that it would end at the end of the school year, but our administrative regulation spells that out as well. And so with that, I would entertain any questions that you may have.
Questions, comments for the board?
In summary, this is just making sure we have enough teachers in the door so we can stay open.
Teachers, bus
And
drivers, staff, and that they're healthy. If they're unable to go to a physician, that they don't. We've lived in a day and time where 2 years ago, teachers would come sick as a dog and they wouldn't go to a doctor, and I'm guilty of that. I would come to work sick as can be. And so it's trying to just make sure before we have somebody return to work that that there's a path if they're struggling, but B, that they're physically ready and able. I'll give you one more small example just to highlight. We had an employee email me tonight and just say they had a return to work and were asking about something. And I said, when's the last time you ran fever? It was today. They're not coming back tomorrow. That made it a very easy, all right, we're maybe the next day, but not tomorrow. So, any other questions?
Questions, motions?
What is the language?
Marble Falls ISD recommends that the board suspend until the end of the 21-22 school year that portion of board policy DEC local regarding the requirement for a medical certification if an employee is absent for more than 3 consecutive workdays because of personal illness or illness in the immediate family, and further move to delegate to the superintendent the authority to determine when medical certification is necessary in this circumstance and develop administrative regulation regarding the same.
Thank you. So move.
Motion by Mr. Payson. Second by Mr. Boshiers. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving right along to Marble Falls Middle School track.
This is first read only. We are presenting you one of the things that we talked about back in November.
Let me hop in here.
Yes.
Yeah. So these next couple of items, we're going to talk about middle school track. We're going to talk about resurfacing tennis courts. Those two in particular. We talked about the potential use of excess bond funds for some projects, and we basically what we heard from the board was go get us some additional detail and come back. We're giving you that additional detail. I want to make sure I'm very clear. This could map to the board saying that sounds right and telling us and approving something, and we start doing the work. It could map to the board saying that's interesting, let us think about it, bring it back next month, and then we'd go do the work. It could map to the board saying, whoa, now that we see the more detailed cost on that, let's just push away for now. So we view this as information sharing that may guide us in the direction of doing some work. I say that. Michael's already done a lot of work to pull these numbers together. But we sort of discussed a short list of things we might get started on. And so I imagine that there's some of these projects you might be more excited about than others. And so if there's something you're like, yep, let's get that going, then we would know to proceed down that path. If you to see some of this and say, you know what, we think that's valuable, but let's table it from now, maybe come back to it another time, then that's what we would do, okay? So I'm trying to be clear on the difference between something that we're suggesting we do and information we're sharing with the board. This is on the list of projects. We obviously think it needs to be done, but we're not necessarily pushing for anything in particular. I don't really push the board, but y'all know what I'm saying, okay? So with that, Jeff, I'll kick it to you.
No. So just to highlight again, these are really first read only. They are for your consideration. No action is needed on either one of them. The first is the middle school track. We talked about it back in November as we were looking at where we were sitting on the bonds and potential excess. Michael worked with different companies off a buy board to submit bids. We received 3 bids from companies that are good companies. One that did our high school track, another one that came very close, was very competitive, and then a third one that has a excellent product, just wasn't in the running for our high school turf and track. And so the prices came in all the way. What you're going to walk away with tonight is just an idea of a range. And so all 3 fell in a very close range between $166,750 all the way to $174,350. And so about a $8,000 range between the 3 companies. All 3 are very good, all 3 very reputable. One of the things that we would want to do is just make sure that, because we struggle getting some of this data as quickly as we were hoping for, and part of that's good because it means they're staying busy, but part of it is we were trying to get it to y'all quicker. We'd want to do a little more checking on these companies, and so even if you were to say, that's a project we love, let's go do that, we want to come back in February and really have a strong recommendation that's vetted. They're all on buy boards, so realistically, we could accept any one of those and be fine, but we just have a little more checking. And so with that, that is the middle school track. I would entertain any questions.
So I'm going to make a comment, and I'm going to ask you a question. This may require Michael. We need to vet the companies and do our due diligence. I will tell you, all 3 of these are top-notch. If you've ever done any work in these areas or you know coaches, you'll recognize the first 2 right off the bat. The third one you may not be as familiar with, but it is the most popular of the companies with people who are just hardcore track coaches. And it's kind of all they do is put in tracks. Talk a little bit about what the work would include. It's an $8,000 range, and I know that, but it's like they're going to strip the thing all the way down, build all the way back up. It's going to be an IS 300 track, which is not quite as...
They're going to remove the existing track and surface and dispose of it. They will inspect the existing track subgrade to determine if there's any other work that's necessary. They're going to install a new track that would be pretty much identical to the quality of the track that's at the middle school. If you remember the high school, we went for a track that would be a potential district event, regional competition center that we could host meets at, and so it's one of the top tier. And so this would be really replacing apples to apples at the middle school, but it would, if you've been out there, you know that track is in a little shape, it's in disrepair. And so it can use a little love, and that they will provide stripes for the track, just like they would at any track. And so, Michael, anything to add related to the work they'll do? It can be, so red and black are the typical standard color options. Our I was not even thinking Red Raiders. So they could go probably any color of track that we were interested in. They come at a higher price, and on the grade that we're at, it would be a significantly higher amount. And so the two that are at the standard price at the ones we're being quoted are going to be either red or black. The one base colors, nothing fancy.
Is
and
one hotter than the other?
Not really, Michael. And so our recommendation when we get to color would be black, just because it's just black, nice, solid.
Okay. Questions, comments with that?
Come back with a little more on that? Like, do y'all like the direction that's headed? Yes?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay.
Tennis court?
Yep, tennis court.
Okay, very good. So again, first read for your consideration. We went and looked only at our high school, not high school and middle school. We do have middle school courts, just in case anybody didn't know that, but our high school ones are really utilized by our kids, and our community utilizes our high school courts. We've worked to try to put a little bit of TLC into the courts, done some repainting. There will be new awnings added this spring to replace some of the old awnings that were tearing up, and we've been working with our new tennis coach to try to make sure our windscreens get held down and last a little bit longer. But this is about the surface, and the surface had not been cleaned in years. And so one of the things that Coach tried to do is go out there and try to get a good cleaning of it. You can tell once you clean a tennis court with anything that's a power washer or anything like that, it's going to be blemished. I don't know a nice word to just, you can tell. If you were to go out there, you could see. And so what we're proposing is that we had 3 companies, the same 3 that went through on the track side. They would all come in, they would work on cleaning the surfaces, making sure that they're all up to snuff, that they're clean. They would look for any low spots that collect water to try to make sure those get repaired. Any cracks that needing to be repaired. Apply coats, surface coats, color coats, playing lines, and then they would clean up. The price ranges on these ranged all the way from $53,000. There was a second one that was in the $60,000 range, which those two were pretty close, at least comparable. And one company was over $100,000. And I will say, my thought is, and this would be part of, I don't know if we would even go that direction. I'm curious if they just farm it out and they don't like to do it, and that just, they were willing to give us a bid, but it's just, if you've ever had a company that's like, where'd that come from? It just, their niche is tracks, probably not tennis surfaces, but they're willing to at least give us an offer. And so, So we would be coming back next month potentially if that were something the board were interested in, with probably one of the two companies that are in that better price range. And again, the work we'd want to do is really just to get some references of school districts that have utilized them, that would be able to give us information regarding quality of work, durability, how well did the process go, how long. One of the things that's hard, we have a number of our community members, I think they'll be excited, but also they'll be bummed that there will be a period of time where the tennis courts will be inaccessible, and we'll have to wait until our spring season's over at the earliest. And we'll have community members off the courts. And so one of the things we want to look at is just the timeline of how long it would take for each company that we were considering. Not that that would be the end-all, be-all, but we want to make sure we try to get our kids on the court. We try to get our community on the court. So any questions related to tennis?
Do you get any discount if you give the same company both jobs?
We would probably be able to entertain that question and just say, if we were, what sharpen your pencil, if we went with both, what would be the best? Because right now we've got our best is from one company on track, our best is on tennis from another, and we could definitely see if there's any savings that would be available should they sharpen their pencils a little better to try to get both. And that would be part of what we would do between now and February 22nd.
No one's questions, comments? Yep.
All right.
Okay, air purifying equipment.
This one, I'm going to talk a little bit longer, only because this one is potentially one I'm going to be asking action for. And let me tell you a little bit of the why I'm going to be asking for you to consider taking action on this. These are funds that are through a COVID grant. It's not ESSER funds. It's intended for supplies related to cleaning supplies, air quality improvements, and then there's a hodgepodge of other items that Yarda could give you more details if you have questions about what are some other things that we could use. We purchased air purifiers for our nurses' offices when COVID really, that coming out of the summer, we purchased some, and to be honest, they're ones you buy off of Amazon. They're not bad. They're just not the level of air purifiers that we're going to talk about tonight. The technology that's presented in these, it is called NanoStrike technology. It is, I like it because I think NanoStrike sounds really cool. I want a t-shirt that says that. And so what it is these devices are put about 6 feet high on the wall. They are very quiet. We have actually a sample one that's running at our middle school. In those spaces, they run 24/7. They use very little electricity, and they are very, very quiet. So it's not like in the places that they'll be running that you would notice them, you would hear them, that they would become a distraction. The location that we would consider putting these would be in nurses' offices, athletic training rooms, food prep spaces, our life skills classrooms at our different campuses, and then with whatever we have left that we would look at locker rooms. Just because of sweaty and yucky and people not taking their clothes home when they should and all those kind of things. I'm sure our kids do all the time, but those would be the places that we would be looking at as potential areas. And each unit is $2,344. The amount that we have to spend is right around almost $130,000. This included in your board materials was information that this actually is through the Region 13 Co-op, that they went through a lot of work looking at different vendors that have different things. I also included different quotes from different companies. The exact same units from one company were right at the amount that we have, and that's what we figured out. The same number of units from other companies ranged around $220,000, $150,000, and then we looked at, just because we wanted to do our due diligence, And we reached out to a company and said, you know, what's the best comparable product that you have? And it was going to be considerably less, but it just was not the quality of product. The technology that I'm talking about, just so I can give you a little bit of background, I included a handout about it, is basically where it has electric coils in the unit and the air will circulate, and any sort of pathogen that enters it will be destroyed within a millisecond. It circulates the air, and it's going to destroy any sort of pathogen that would include COVID. Sorry, the peanut section's giving me grief. Yes, so, yes. Yes. If we were ever to have an outbreak of, yes, MRSA and staph. Yes. And so the units themselves, they are a 7-year guaranteed warranty unless we had somebody take a baseball bat. The only thing that has to be done is you have a small little filter that every month you would just take out. It's not much bigger than a credit card, and with a cloth you just wipe it off, put it back, and that's it. Simple as that. Their units, from what I hear, have a lifespan. They at least last 10 years, if not longer. They've not had any that have ended before life 10 years. And if any did, they were replaced immediately at no cost to the district. And so we felt like it's a great opportunity for us to consider some key places. Y'all, the last thing I'm going to say is this before I answer any questions that you may have about this. One of the things that Dr. Allen charged me, sort of, he said, one of the things I was asking him is probably a better way to say this is, do you want me to look at technology related to air filtration systems? Because a lot of districts were thinking about it, looking at it. And he said, knock yourself out. And so I did. I was curious what's out there. I looked at different products in different areas, and there's a lot that are up in the ceiling. One of the products we looked at required every 2 years you had to go in and you replace batteries in there, and it just, all of a sudden you create a ton of work to keep it up to date, replacing filters up in the ceilings, and it just, this is a pretty simple process. One of the things I looked at was ultraviolet rays. The interesting thing that I kept hearing about that over and over from people that were interested in utilizing that is, it's great, you turn it on at night. The minute you turn it off and the kids walk in the door, if any one of them's sick, you have the potential for it to just spread, and you won't have it clean until it's clean one time a day, and that's it. This is going to clean all day long as the filter runs, and it's utilized in hospitals, utilized in universities. There's a lot of organizations that utilize it, and Texas schools have been implementing it. I could name you a couple that have utilized it. Yes, sir, Dr. Al.
Just a couple more pieces of context. I know we've talked about this a lot, but the group that we were meeting with, that included board member, parent, doctor, 2 board members, Mr. Payson, Mr. Boshears, Dr. Van Dorfy, Jake Bryden, and others. They had asked us to think about some things that we might be able to do with air purification. And part of our review process included, we had some doctors look at the product and weigh in on whether or not they thought it was, like, the technology behind it made any sense. Nurse Kelly weighed in on this a little bit. So we've also done our due diligence on, like, is this stuff the real deal? And it tends to be a product that we think highly of, obviously. That's why we're bringing it to you. I also just want to remind the board it's grant fund. What's the name of that grant, Yarda, that's paying for this? Okay. And so we applied for grant funding that would be paying for this, and it would need board approval because the total amount of $128,920. But this isn't coming out of ESSER funds. This isn't coming out of general fund. This isn't coming out of bond funds. This is a grant that we received specifically to make this type of purchase. And so We feel like it's responsive to a request from members of our community. We feel like we can do this in a way that has a long-term impact. It's not just about COVID, it's about all infectious disease, low maintenance, highly effective. And so, and if it goes great, and we continue to have ongoing issues, I keep thinking the pandemic's going to be over one day. Buying these 55 would give us a chance to see how they work in these environments. We could always expand and buy more over time if we felt like there was a significant benefit.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure they know that we vetted this through some people. So if there are others that you talk to,
So I'm suspicious of anything I don't understand. And I'm wondering if another disclaimer I'll say is I think there's like 5 air purification filters in my house that my husband put in. I'm not sure if they do anything at all. Is this really more of a, hey, we're doing everything we can, or do the people who have them actually see a difference? Or is this just a liability thing? Hey, we're not liable because we're doing everything we can.
No, we're not looking at it through the lens of liability at all.
Right, and I don't believe we are. I'm just saying I don't necessarily.
I think that's an interesting question, and I think it's one that's hard to quantify in today's wide world of COVID, Omicron, that it seems like everybody's getting sick if you are even remotely close to somebody with it. What I can say is that the technology itself is being utilized in a lot of hospitals, that they're finding success. It's been one that has had trials, not just, a lot of times companies do their own trials to try to sell you a product, and so you look at the research, it's self-funded. The research on this is that it's being researched by entities that have adopted it to see its effectiveness, and that it's not just them paying somebody to do it. It's that they have had research and studies that I could get you if you were interested in looking at it to show the effectiveness of it, and it's not, I mean, is it going to keep all of our kids from getting sick? No, because part of that is we're only looking at targeted areas, but we have some of our neediest areas that we're targeting, such as our life skills classroom. Is it going to keep all of our life skills kids from getting sick? No, because they go ride a bus to go home. They go home to a mom and dad who live in our community, and so it's going to be hard to quantify just the effective, ineffective, but I feel like it is a good step to try to address concerns and provide these in places where we have significant issues that would be worth at least a first step, and we have the funding to be able to do it.
If this were approved, how soon would we have things going?
We'll make the order tomorrow, and from what I understand from 3 other districts that have received these, that they would have had them by the end of the week. And so then it's just a matter of, at that point in time, it's a matter of just Michael, Jeff, and their crew trying to get these installed as quickly as possible. They install the one we've got a loaner from the company, and they were able to install it the day we received it.
Other questions, comments? Is there anything, that money is grant funded, is basically just COVID equipment, and so if we didn't spend it on this, we'd spend it on?
Well, we have to have it spent by March, the end of March, and we're buying some supplies. We have some money that's designated for purchasing some supplies, and then there's a little bit YARDA related to. Well,
we buy supplies. It's PPE, right?
It could be. We have some money for PPE. Yeah. We also have some money for just general cleaning supplies that are through our maintenance group, that they're purchasing some cleaning supplies, and then there's a little bit more that could be.
We pay for part of the LVN salary out of this, and then about $15,000 in cleaning supplies, $3,000 for PPE. And then I just was kind of picky that the state wanted us to pay $168 for something, so I charged it to I wrote it in the grant. And then the rest, right now, how the grant is written was for air filtration systems, the state did have that as a separate item. They released several documents into some studies that they had done on air filtration systems in schools. And the grant, from when it was released to turned in, had a pretty quick timeline. And we have to show that we have used the items from the grant by March 31st, which is when the grant ends.
So we wrote the grant with the anticipation that we would, this is part of it.
This is part of
Got
it,
it.
but grants can be adjusted.
Sorry, I didn't understand that to start with.
Thank you.
It seems like one more tool in the tool belt.
That's our hope.
So, yeah. Questions, comments, motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of 55 Noveris air purifying devices from Protect Education through the Region 13 Purchasing Cooperative in an amount not to exceed $128,920.
Motion by Mr. Payson.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Verdell. Any discussion?
Sorry, Nano Stroke.
Nano strike. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'll work on
Have
getting
fun.
you
See if you can get
t-shirts.
us all t-shirts.
Yes, I'll work on that.
Consider impossible approval of action for consent agenda. Item 1 is minutes from the regular meeting on December 13th and budget amendments is item number 2. Anything to comment on those or a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion by Mr. Boshiers.
Second.
Second by Mr. Verdell. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 11B is resolution in support of the Highland Lakes Crisis Network Trust Initiative. I'm going to abstain from this one, but Dr. Allen, do you have?
Gladly. So this, as you'll remember, there was a presentation last month in which there was a discussion about a trust initiative that was being led by the community. Highland Lakes Crisis Network is sort of the point on the communication, but it's actually a community effort that has been spearheaded to try and have a discussion about how we can restore trust amongst individuals and then individuals in the institutions that are here to serve them. That resolution is attached, and in that resolution, what it basically does is, let me get back to it real quick, is it talks about the importance of trying to work to build trust in our community, to try and make sure we capture, there it is, yeah. Support the work of the Highland Lakes Crisis Network, collectively desire to create a positive impact on the lives and futures of people across the Highland Lakes area. A group of leaders has convened to explore the creation of community-wide vision built on trust and believe a movement centered around knowing one another, listening to one another, and caring for one another is important to accomplishing this goal. This movement not only seeks to build and promote trust as a core community principle, but to also enrich the lives and interactions of current and future residents. I've been in on some of the discussions behind the scenes, and there's this notion that we really want people to invite it into our community where they understand what it is that makes us unique, and we actually feel like we have a community that has a high level of trust, and we want to make sure that it's embraced in a way that affirms the unique positive aspects of the Highland Lakes community. And so it would be resolved that Marble Falls ISD requests that its citizens and stakeholders affirm the Community Trust Initiative. And so that's what this resolution is. Administration recommends that we adopt this resolution as it's written.
What is this in response to?
That's an interesting question. I don't know that it would be, and I know you're abstaining from this, Mr. Nolan, but you can nod if I'm getting it right. I wouldn't say it's in response to anything so much as it is, it's in response to the changing dynamics of the Hill Country. There is discussion about all the rooftops that are going to be coming. And it is a look at the changing dialogue on both the national and the state landscape around what it means to be an active participant in your community and be involved in building a community, not just living in one, but helping to participate in building one. And there is this notion that the Highland Lakes area is distinctively unique from other places. And part of that distinct uniqueness is how much of what happens here is based on positive relationships that exist between the people who live here. And we all know that the foundation to a healthy relationship is trust. And so I think there's an effort to try and make sure that the trust that the community has is strengthened and maintained over time. And then that it's brought to the surface in a way that helps everyone understand that when you're joining this community, you're partnering with a culture that expects you to contribute. And as part of that contribution, you're going to have to both contribute to and draw on that trust. And when I say draw on it, you might need to risk. We had community members come to the mic tonight and talk about a concern they have. That's a risk. They express trust in this board by talking to us. And so then we felt like it's those kinds of conversations over time that actually help us be better. And so we want to try and make sure that there is an effort in place to not lose that very unique aspect of the Highland Lakes area that we actually think allows us to do things that not everyone can do.
So I'd make a motion to approve the trust initiative resolution as presented.
Motion by Mr. Boshiers. Second by Mr. Payson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I'll abstain from that. Thank you. Item 11C is Marble Falls High School Band Hall acoustic panels.
As a reminder, last meeting, we had a discussion about the high school band hall and the acoustical panels, that it is an area currently that there are no acoustical paneling there. This would, some of the benefits, just as a reminder, is the auditory health of the students and staff, reduction in residual noise, improved intelligibility of sound, and improved appearance of the facility. One of the reminders of the panels that we're considering is that they would be potentially movable should the band hall ever get relocated in a future bond, meaning not just like if we were thinking about one in the near future, but one 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road. The project would be for 3 different spaces. Those 3 spaces, the band hall, percussion room, and the jazz room. They are 2-inch thick fabric wrapped wall panels of various sizes. The company would come in, it is a turnkey, and the company would come in and install those to give the band hall a new look and feel. The total of the project is $46,050, and so the district recommends that the board approve the superintendent to negotiate a contract with Acoustical Solutions for sound paneling at the high school not to exceed $46,050.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Verdell. Second by Mr. Boshiers. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item D is Highland Lakes Elementary School playgrounds.
Okay. This also was discussed at the December board meeting, that we presented a PowerPoint for you all, and I'm not going to go through that again, but just so this is, I'm going to be even quicker now. So the first read was just for you to consider a new playground space. We showed you that it would be in an area that currently does not have any development. It would be ADA accessible, including a raft swing, integrated shade, together gliders, and many more games for our students, and that there would be an ADA ramp that would give access to our ADA students from the playground. Design was submitted by LEA Park and Play, a company that we utilize for playground needs. Companies on buy board. The total of the amount would be $145,248. And so Marble Falls ISD recommends that the board approve. The superintendent, let me before I say that, just remind the board, this is from excess bond funds, and so is the previous one, just to remind you. I know I said that last time, so I'm going to go on. MFISD recommends that the board approve the superintendent to negotiate a contract with LEA Park and Play for a playground at Highland Lakes Elementary School not to exceed $145,248.
Y'all know know how to get people to start making motions around here. Motion by Mr. McCrary, Ms. McCrary.
Second.
Was that Verdell? Second by Mr. Verdell. Any discussion?
I have one question, actually.
Yep.
We've already, this is the second time talking about playgrounds tonight. It's probably the separate thing, but I was just wondering, is there any like intersection of this with the inclusive playgroup, or does that not make sense?
What do you mean by inclusion?
The Marble Falls Inclusive Playgroup that
Ashley
presented earlier about
crosses.
a playground.
So
Talk about another
they have
playground
nothing,
here.
one has nothing to do with the other.
Is
This
there any
would be a
reason-
playground inside the
Right.
Highland
I
Lake.
think you're asking if it should.
Yes, that is my question. Is there any reason why it should, or does it make sense for it to be separate?
What I would say is that what they want to do is in a completely different part of town geographically. This is Highland Lakes, and they're wanting to stay in the Marble Falls city side, which I actually think is an advantage because it gives us two locations, okay? Two, this is a much smaller component, or component's not the right word, but it's a much smaller modular setup than what they are envisioning with the inclusive play. There's a very large. This is what we're doing is we need to add some playground space at HLES, and since we need to add it anyway, let's make it inclusive. Versus a master planned playground space that from the ground up, every aspect of it is for inclusive play. That would be both for the community at large as well as the school children. So they're not, they are related in the sense that we're all trying to move in the direction of being more inclusive, but I don't know that they're necessarily, I think that the way that we're trying to approach this kind of makes sense because it's two different types of projects. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the question.
No, it's a good question. Wouldn't you agree?
Okay, other questions, comments? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank y'all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Upcoming meetings, board training opportunities, Tuesday, make note that's Tuesday, February 22nd, regular board meeting. Monday, March 21st is regular board meeting, and to another Tuesday, April 19th, regular board meeting.
Just for your calendars, be reminded, January 26th, special called meeting on superintendent's evaluation. It'll take place almost entirely in closed session, but that is February 26th. What time is that, Crystal?
January.
Did I say February? Sorry, January 26th at 3. Okay.
All right, that gets us to executive session. We'll adjourn into executive session under discussion of professional personnel, 551.074, and real property, 551.072. And personally identifiable student information, 551.0821 at 8:45 p.m. Okay, we'll reconvene into open session at 9:20 PM, and we have no action coming before the board, and we're out of agenda items, so we'll also